So this is my audience, Chin and Kazel. Okay, you guys. Hi, my name is Cassandra Hofel. I'm going to be talking about a psychology-based term on how to save a life. The specific purpose of this is to inform you guys on not only to identify warning signs to someone who is considering self-harm, but also on how to deal with it when you are faced with it. The How to Save a Life is crucial. It was based on psychology-based classes. They teach you on how to save a life. It's just basically learning the warning signs, in which I'm about to go over with you guys today. So raise your hand if you ever had a personal problem that you guys felt like you couldn't share with anybody else. Imagine having that feeling all the time where you couldn't talk to anybody. Most cultures, talking about your problem is considered weak and a form of vulnerability that people aren't comfortable with sharing in their dynamic of their family home. Given this, many younger generations feel ashamed of their problems, so they do hold it in, regardless of how severe the situation might be. They don't talk about any abuse or difficult times to avoid the shame that they may feel. And given that, they hold it in and they don't express it, and it often turns into sadness, depression, anxiety, and fear. Kathleen Smith is a psychologist, states in her article, Suicide Warnings, that holding in something that may be traumatic in our lives can trigger emotions such as anger, anxiety, shame, or humiliation. I learned the importance of knowing these warning signs today, and I would like to share with you guys the important warning signs, what to look for, so you can help a loved one who may be in need. So let me start off by showing you guys the basics of what I will be going over today. So in order to help someone who might be suicidal, we must know what we're looking for. Let me tell you about warning signs, one of the many warning signs to look for. But one of the first most important that we've discussed in psychology-based classes, psychologists have backed it up, is the reluctance of a person to discuss their past. It's almost like they have no memory of it. It's a blackout. As stated in What You Should Know About Suicide, the author Timothy Lake says a person's history is a way to identify their triggers and traumatic stress. The past will be something they don't wish to discuss, and they might even be an argument starter. They might be hostile to discuss, bring up their past, and their history is a sign of trauma they may have experienced. Many regular people who talk about their past so openly and freely is a normal sign in a human behavior, but for someone to be very hostile and to be sad or have a blackout period in which they have no memory of their childhood is a usual sign that they have had a traumatic experience, whether it's been abuse or attack. Overall, understanding a person's reluctance to talk about their past is a warning sign that they could be more vulnerable to suicidal behavior or suicidal tendencies such as self-harm. Another warning sign will be the constant talking about their life being unimportant. I personally believe this is the most important one. People will tell you, friends, when people are sad, they will constantly come to you and telling that they feel unimportant or worthless. They will constantly complain on how life would be better without them and how they feel like such a burden on everybody else around them, including friends and family. This is the most important warning sign because this is the first stages that they are considering taking their own life or thinking about committing suicide. It's very important that we pay attention to somebody who's saying that they feel unimportant, and unworthless. The most important warning sign as well would be withdrawal from family and friends. What I mean by withdrawal with family and friends is I mean that they choose to be alone than with friends or family. They have loss of interest in activities they once loved. That's the most important one, I feel, because if they once loved to be out with family and friends, to be a social person, to go out and do their favorite things, and they all of a sudden don't have any interest in that, then it would be a big problem. Also, another sign would be excessive sadness. All these symptoms are important in identifying suicidal behavior. Anybody who is overly sad or cannot pinpoint their emotions will be a big sign that they are considering suicide or have already did self-harm, such as cutting. So now that I discussed all the warning signs with you guys on what to do, Is there any questions on how to identify warning signs?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So now I would like to discuss with you guys on what to do when you are faced with these signs. I showed you guys all the important signs to look for, but now it's important to know what to do when you want to help these people. The steps and precautions in approaching in a safe manner, according to Finding Answers by Find Your Own Answers or by Kaiser, they give you 5 steps on how to help somebody and what questions to ask. The first question is ask the hard question. Are you thinking of killing yourself? Within yourself, ask the question without a judgment-free tone and actually with concern. That's the hardest question, and many people feel that's the hardest one to ask. But it's most important in helping and in seeing if anybody is committing suicide is to ask them, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Say it as cautious and as caring as you can. The second one would be keep them safe. Ask what would help them get through the night, what would help them get through the day, the next few weeks or months. This question may seem silly because at the time they may say nothing at all, but at that time you could just stay by their side, and if you do have to leave, make sure they have someone there to supervise them and keep them company. Another step would just be follow up and call in on them, check on them, make sure that they're okay, make sure they're going toward a road of recovery. You don't want them to feel better one day and worse the next, because that is a common sign that they often will have. In addition to knowing the steps into taking care of somebody, it is a big role to take care of somebody who is considering suicide. So I also want to share some steps on taking care of someone who might be suicidal, but also to have self-care. To take care of yourself, it's important as well. It's important to not take on the primary role of caring for somebody, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed when caring for someone who is suicidal. Don't blame yourself for someone else's thoughts, and accept those who are all willing to help them. Don't take on the role yourself, in other words, and accept the help that anybody's willing to give to you and to the person in need. So in conclusion, while these signs may help you identify someone with suicidal behavior, it is safe to take precaution and address the situation as calmly as possible. Don't be overeager and assume you know the situation when it takes time. People who do feel these things don't always feel suicidal. When addressing someone about their suicidal thoughts, be sure to contact someone with whom they trust and a healthcare professional. I just can't stress this enough, to call someone that they trust, a friend that they usually rely on, but also to call a healthcare professional, because that friend won't always be there, and you also want a healthcare professional to know that this person is committing suicide so they could be admitted to a doctor or a psychologist who can help them with their problems. And also, in words of Dr. Richardson from the article Suicide Line Victoria, take care of yourself before you could take care of others.